revenue to the fund and will directly benefit the district's most vulnerable residents, particularly communities east of the Anacostia River. The fund will support displacement prevention, blighted revitalization, housing stability, small and local businesses, and community wealth programs, and public health programs. The investment outlined in the CBA are a strong start, but the impacted neighborhoods across wards 5, 6, 7, and 8 deserve more, and this amendment aims to ensure that. This amendment guarantees meaningful and sustainable investments will flow into communities most impacted by the RFK Stadium redevelopment. Now, as we embrace this opportunity to bring the Washington Commanders home where they rightfully belong, it is also up to us to ensure that we do so in a way that is responsible, respectful, and beneficial to the communities that need the resources the most. And with that, I strongly urge my council colleagues to support this amendment. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Felder. So you circulated an amendment yesterday at 6:56 p.m. Then you circulated a revised version at 2:47 p.m. today, and it's that second version that's before us.
Yes, sir.
And this, you believe, addresses some concerns that the Budget Office raised.
Yes.
And as I understand it, it's simply a $2 million direction of funds from a revenue stream and appears to establish a special fund, the Community Reinvestment Fund.
Yes.
I have no objection to this, but we'll see what other people think. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you. I want to commend Councilmember Felder. I think this amendment moves an equitable solution to ensure the communities most impacted by this development reap rewards. And those are certainly residents in Ward 7, but also surrounding areas, including Wards 8, 5, and 6. And I think this has merit, as has been the word of choice today. There was one question that came up earlier, and I'm hoping Councilmember Felder will accept a friendly adjustment, and that was around this Community Benefits Oversight Committee, which I think Councilmember McDuffie, and others have been really thoughtful about how to construct it. It sounds like 3 members will come from Ward 7, 1 from Wards 5 and 6. The mayor will appoint people, the chairman will appoint people, and those individuals, by extension, represent the interests of their communities. I think it's really important that those individuals have a decision-making authority for how these funds are spent versus DMPED. Obviously, they're going to work with DMPED, but since we're creating this advisory council or committee, I think we should give them decision-making authority over these funds. So with that, I propose a friendly amendment to Councilmember Felder's amendment. It's just a choice of words so that we can make clear that this committee would make those decisions.
I'm going to object to that.
And I've already flagged it for Councilmember Felder.
Okay, but I'm going to object to changing that committee on the Community Benefits Fund.
We're not changing the committee. It's just to make clear that this fund, embedded in Councilmember Felder's amendment, the committee that is already in the language of our deal, that committee has a say in how these funds are spent.
This is the first time hearing of it, and this is very concerning to me because this needs to be thought through. It may be perfectly fine, but until this minute, my understanding is that that committee did not have decision-making authority, and now you're saying it should. Now, this doesn't affect the team, but
that is correct. We did discuss this morning at the breakfast. The question then that I would raise is, we are creating this fund where we're sending millions of dollars. Who decides how those funds are spent? By default, we would assume it's DMPED. As we discussed this morning, the advisory members from Ward 7, 8, 5, 6 should have a decision-making authority to say how the funds are spent.
I don't know. Unfortunately, we're into the final reading, and this is the first I'm hearing this. I am the manager of this bill, and I don't mean that to mean that it's personal, but I'm the one who is responsible for vetting all the amendments and understanding how they interconnect. So
I understand that.
there's no money coming into this fund this year. I don't think there's any money coming into the fund next year.
2030.
Until when? 2030. No money coming into the fund until 2030. So we have lots of time to
I
think
mean,
about.
arguably, then we don't have to vote on this amendment right now, if we use that logic. We did talk about this morning. I have talked about it with Councilmember Felder. It is my understanding, and Councilmember Felder can speak for himself, but it's my understanding he's okay with it. I get the concern and reservation. I'm happy to take it up after this matter, but I just think it's really important. If we're creating an advisory board, it shouldn't just be for show, especially if you're talking about members of our community coming from the most disadvantaged areas in the city. It should have meaning.
Mr. Chairman,
Further on Mr. Felder's amendment,
Mr.
I had indicated that I would accept it without objection.
Oh, you did.
But to be clear, Mr. Chairman, so am I not allowed to make an adjustment to the amendment?
Well, you didn't. You had
So-
the floor and you did not move anything.
I am moving an oral amendment to line 20 of Councilmember Felder's amendment. And if the general counsel could just give me a head nod to let me know if I'm good to proceed, or somebody. Okay. I am proposing, after the sentence that ends with redevelopment, we would insert the words, "The use of these funds shall be determined by the majority of members from the Community Benefits Oversight Committee for the following purposes, colon," and then it proceeds as the language of the bill. I'll repeat that again. I am proposing, hopefully friendly, on line 20, that we would insert the words, "The use of these funds shall be determined by the majority of members from the Community Benefits Oversight Committee for the following purposes, colon," and then it would proceed as the amendment is already scripted.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
So that would refer to this stream of income flowing into the Community Reinvestment Fund, but there's other streams of income, because I'm a little confused. For the other streams of income, will those dollars be, the use of those dollars be determined by a
No.
majority of the group?
The intention here is for this one amendment, for the specialty fund that Councilmember Felder's amendment creates, where we're pulling some 1.5% off of general funds to the district for dedicated use in wards 7, 8, 5, and 6. This would just give those advisory members decision-making authority in conjunction with DMPED to determine how they're used.
So they'd have decision-making authority here, but with the other incomes in revenue stream,
only focused
they'd be
on this one
advisory.
amendment.
No, I'm just trying to understand the landscape, because the question is, this is somehow a big change from what the previous understanding is, and the previous understanding from the other revenue stream is the group advisory or decision-making?
I'm not, my focus here is on the amendment before us. And earlier in the breakfast, it was raised, who gets to decide how the millions of dollars in this fund, which has merit, which I support, I think many people support. The question is, who gets to decide that? Is it DMPED, or is it the members of this advisory committee? The language here would just specify that the members from Ward 7, Wards 8, Wards 5 and 6 who would be thoughtfully selected would actually have decision-making authority. That's it.
Mr. Chairman?
So there are a number of people who want to speak. The challenge here is that this is a substantive proposal that members are seeing for the first time, has not been vetted, and you've moved the amendment, which is your right, but I'm going to be mindful that we may spend a whole lot of time discussing language, and that is not the role. That's basically a committee function. So we'll see how this discussion goes. But I tried to make the point earlier that how we can always revisit, and we've got 5 years to do it, but we could always revisit, because this is not the last time we're going to be dealing with the stadium. There'll be something that will require us to facilitate, and so we will have other opportunities to flesh this out. I believe Councilmember McDuffie, who technically is a co-introducer on all this, wanted to speak, and then I heard Councilmember Bonds, Pinto, and Allen, and Trayon White. Councilmember McDuffie?
Thank you, Chairman. So hopefully this helps Councilmember Parker's consideration of, I think, the reasonable adjustment he's attempting to make. The language that was in the ANS, and frankly was in first reading, had already given the mayor authority to administer the fund, and it gave her the authority to designate someone, but it also gave room to be able to adjust that at some point later. The idea of the community benefits agreement in this measure was not to try to hash out every single item that ultimately will be in the community benefits agreement document. It was to provide a framework for us to allow for some of the broader types of things that would be included in the CBA. I think this is something that can be addressed more specifically later, and I actually had a similar conversation with Councilmember Felder too, because he added DMPED. And I was making sure that he understood what that, the implications of that were going to be. I don't have a problem with that. I'm going to support, well, I don't have a problem with what he added, in that we could take it out later if necessary, and we still going to spend time after this vote actually hashing out what goes into the CBA, right? So the component of his amendment that adds the language around DMPED is not as problematic to me. And the board has the authority to provide oversight, and they will be substantive component of the CBA and how it gets administered, and they will be selected in a way that I think is thoughtful. So I wouldn't want to support what you're doing today, and hopefully that there's plenty of time for you to be able to talk with other members, with the executive, with other people in the community about what your concerns might be in terms of how it gets administered. I don't think we should do it from the dais at this point, though.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Councilmember-
if it's okay, I would just like to withdraw it with the agreement that we can work on this afterwards.
That would be excellent, because I think that where you're trying to go has merit, but I
I didn't hear you, Mr. Chairman.
I said that would be excellent. You did hear me. That would be excellent. I think the proposal where you're trying to go has merit, but I'm having whispered in my ear a number of different questions. So
Understood.
we're back to Councilmember Felder's amendment. If there's no,
Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I got my answer. As I was looking at Councilmember Felder's amendment, it just struck me as to, okay, we're talking about how this money will be used, but who's going to disperse it? And so, to me, it felt like we didn't have a complete thought with just this amendment. So I see it fits within your ANS. But in fitting within your ANS, I agree with my colleague, Councilmember McDuffie, that I think it's going to be very hard for us today to deal with all of the details that we have in our head, and I'm hoping that we will put a pin in it enough so that, one, the concept we're accepting, but the practical organization of this process is something that has to come later. As you have mentioned, over the next 5 years, we probably will have to revisit a few times. So that's my thought. And you can tell me if I'm on target. Thank you.
You're always on target. I'm still trying to see if we can just dispose of this by unanimous consent, but Councilmember Trayon White, you want to be recognized, and then Councilmember Robert White.
Yes, I want to thank my colleague, Wendell Felder, for his diligence in this. I know he's been on the ground doing this work and having so many meetings in the community about how we can make this a more equitable bill for the entire DC. I'm torn only because today we're talking about, investing into infrastructure for a state-of-the-art brand new facility, which will bring the commanders to DC, but we're talking about removing rights for TOPA in the same day. And so I had an amendment that spoke to ensuring that residents, when they hear from us, that they know we care about all residents of DC, including those who have particularly been left behind in this development process. And I don't put all this on the commanders to take care of all these things, but I think that the community benefit agreement leads us in the right direction. So I want to thank you for that. I had a bill, but part of Councilmember Felder's amendment speaks to part of my bill, and so I spoke to him about offering a friendly amendment. And I would like to move an oral amendment to Councilmember Felder's amendment in line 21 to insert utility assistance after the phrase rental assistance, which people are in dire need of help from our city. We haven't gone far enough to reach out and keep those residents here who are struggling. So I'll ask this will be accepted as friendly to this amendment.
Councilmember Felder, how do you feel about this? If there's no objection, this would be accepted. Hearing no objection, it's accepted. If there's no objection, oh, sorry, somebody else wanted to be recognized too. Councilmember Robert White?
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to offer an oral amendment that extends the use case of the Community Reinvestment Fund that, if it passes, I'd amend Section 9C3B by adding subparagraph 5, which states $5 million in funding for home purchasing assistance for residents of the condominium owners of River East at Grandview, end quote. This funding would be in a direct alignment of so many of the goals that are stated in the purpose of this fund by Councilmember Felder, and ensure that these residents can get back on the path of home ownership once again, which is something that most on the council have signaled support for.
I am going to rule that out of order because that is a little too complicated for an oral amendment.
Chairman, this is less complicated than other amendments we debated, so I don't see how this is out of order. It is exactly in line with the language of this bill.
Madam
The
General
language
Counsel,
is
can you read the amendment
simple.
back? Not yet, no. See, that's the point. Really, oral amendments are disfavored.
It
And
is.
so when Council Member Parker moves an amendment that is maybe a dozen words, that's one thing. But you have something that's a bit more substantive.
It is not. It is about a dozen words. The words are $5 million in funding for home purchasing assistance for residents of the condominium of River East at Grandview. That's it, Chairman. I'm putting that language in Section 9C3B.
Mr. Chairman?
That would be after line 31.
Mr. Chairman, given that I haven't had an opportunity to review Council Members White's amendment, Robert White's amendment, I'm going to reject the amendment.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad this is funny, but we are rejecting these residents over and over again. So we talk a good game, but when we have an opportunity to step up for them, we don't do it. And it is frustrating. If we're talking about displacement, we're talking about a fund for displacement. We have people who have been displaced, and we have money coming in to cover it. And we're talking about a dozen-word oral amendment.
Mr. Chairman, may I point of order? I want to ask a question.
Yes, Councilmember.
All right, thank you. To Councilmember Robert White, I want to know if you are speaking of Councilmember Felder's amendment, or are you speaking of the A&S? I'm trying to, excuse me, I'm trying to follow along as to where you would want this language inserted.
Thank you, Councilmember Bonds. This would be inserted into Councilmember Felder's language that speaks of displacement prevention for residents of Ward 7 and 8. And we are speaking here specifically of residents in Ward 8 who have been displaced.
I see. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman.
So I'm going to argue against this. First of all, the council has dealt with this issue at least once before. Councilmember White, you've moved this. Second of all, and I think more important, is that as was indicated earlier when we were discussing this, that is Councilmember Felder's amendment, the money in this fund doesn't kick in until 2030. I think that's correct, 2030. That's 5 years from now. All of the owners at River East Grandview will have been relocated by then. It also overlooks the fact that the amount of money that the city has put in to assist the residents at River East at Grandview, and I think what happened there is horrible, but it wasn't the city's fault. I'll be very clear about that. It was not the city's fault, but the amount of money that the city's put in there has already been in the millions. I want to say 17 million, but I might have that number wrong. I'm sort of trying to look at some mayor's people. I think it was about 17 million that we've already given the residents, both in paying their rent for a couple years, as well as in relocation assistance, as well as for those who could or wanted to, home purchase assistance. We've put millions and millions of dollars in. They are all either relocated or will be relocated within the next half a year. This fund is not available for another 5 years, and that actually may be incorrect. It might be 6 years. The council has already gone over this a number of times, and I have a hunch that my colleague would point out that the fund will generate $2 million a year, and you're going to use 2.5 years of the fund for this purpose. So I think that covers all the issues with this. I think it's great that you're an advocate for those owners. Again, it's horrible what's happened to them, but this amendment isn't the way to do it. Further on this, Councilmember Trahan White.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the spirit of what you're trying to do, Councilmember Robert White, for the residents of River East Grandview. And I object to the narrative that the government had no fault in this. I think this particular project was funded by the government and it was approved through construction. And now the building is falling apart, which is been evacuated and potentially can fall down the hill and kill people eventually if we don't do something drastically now. And to say that they'll be housed in 5 years, we thought that 4 years ago, and some of them are still not housed. And so I would support, I don't know if this is the right fix, but I think that we have to do something to ensure that we can rehouse these residents who are homeowners, all Black individuals, and most of them first-time home buyers. And I would support this. It probably won't get very far, but I just want to go on the record to say I appreciate the spirit of what you're trying to do, Councilman Robert White, and I know the residents do too, which are homeowners. Thank you.
Further on this? Councilmember, the vote will be on Councilmember Robert White's oral amendment. The oral amendment is to add at line 32, I believe it's at line 32, a subparagraph V, 5 million in funding for home purchasing assistance for the residents of the condominium owners of River East at Grandview. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The amendment fails. We still have Councilmember Felder's amendment before us. It would be nice if we could dispose of it before there are any more oral amendments. If there's no objection to Councilmember Felder's amendment, it will be accepted. And again, this is the version that was circulated at 2:47. Hearing no objection, it is accepted. We have 3 amendments from Councilmember Tran White.
Thank you, Chairman. This amendment focuses on CBA enforcement. While RFK Stadium campus provides the Community Benefit Agreement Oversight Committee to monitor the implementation of the CBA, this bill does not grant enforcement authority for the Community Benefit Agreement to any organization or government entity. As talked about in the breakfast, I did offer this amendment to give OAG some teeth to this, and I did agree to speak with them, and I'll share what they wrote. They pretty much said that we do not have an inherent authority to enforce CBAs. They even looked back through some case law in which they didn't have authority to enforce CBAs, and there are many types of CBAs. However, they did say with full transparency that they do not support an amendment that give their office the express authority at this time, stating that they got the bill yesterday. So with that being said, I'm going to withdraw this bill and try to figure out what we can do to ensure accountability and enforcement. And I'm still, in saying that before I close, I'm still perplexed because we don't know who's going to be on the council 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or even at OAG 5 or 10 years from now. So we still have to make sure that down the road that this thing gets done and people get what we said that we were going to get through this deal.
So you're withdrawing number 1?
Number 2.
Okay. That was the one concerning the Attorney General.
Yep.
Okay. Are you moving any other amendments?
Yes. Amendment 3. This amendment focuses on our youth athletes. As a former coach in Washington, D.C. for almost 9 years, it's disheartening how our young people have to scrape and pull just to get adequate uniforms to participate in sports. And every year, I know for me, and probably countless of other city leaders, we get calls every year because a team or group of youth are traveling out of town with no money to travel. And I think this is a perfect fit for the Commanders who've historically had a heart to give back and serve our youth through sports. So this amendment will create a line to ensure that youth can pay for travel, uniforms, and equipment necessary to take advantage of other opportunities for our youth. This amendment would include youth sports team support as an initiative that is promoted through the CBA. It is intended to allow youth to be directly helped, 30 more seconds, Chairman, by the Community Benefit Agreement pursuant to this bill. I do want to note that I did meet with members of the Commanders, which they agreed to this. There are other categories that we speak to other priorities in the city. Why not our children? So I offer this amendment.
If there's no objection, the amendment will be accepted. This is your amendment number 3
Yep.
to add the phrase, including youth sports team support. Hearing
Yeah.
no objection, it's accepted. Anything further, Councilmember White?
I'm going to withdraw my first amendment because it was achieved through a friendly amendment through Councilmember Felder. So I want to withdraw the amendment. That's all I have for today.
Thank you. Councilmember Robert White.
Thank you, Chairman. Colleagues, the entire case for the stadium has been that it would speed up development on the RFK site. That was the one supposed advantage over mixed-use development. Let's be clear, as the schedule stands in the circulated ANS, the stadium will take almost as long as the mixed-use development. Any financial benefit is evaporating before our eyes. Right now, the accountability doesn't kick in until 2053. My 9-year-old daughter would be about my age by that time. That's absurd. My amendment says every year the team misses a deadline, they pay $10 million. No excuses, no waiting 30 years. It's based on the same market rate penalty the team has already agreed to, but structured so it actually matters. Not just a rounding error to a billionaire corporation. Want to be clear. Residents are putting up over $1 billion for this project. So what we're talking about here is a penalty of less than 1%. That's if you don't count the value of the land at all. The money goes into the district's general fund the following year, so taxpayers don't carry the cost of those delays. Right now, the delays fall on DC taxpayers who are paying this $1 billion off the city's credit cards. We don't have this money in the bank account. The team has told us again and again that timely development is in their best interest. If that's true, then they should have no objection to being held to their word. And if it's not true, then the public deserves this protection. Ideally, the commanders never have to pay these fees. That's not what any one of us want. And they deliver in a timely manner that triggers the incentive rather than the fee. If we're going to subsidize this project, the very least we can do is demand accountability. So I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. I now move Amendment 1 and urge my colleagues to support. Thank you, Chairman.
Is there discussion? Councilmember Pinto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to speak against this amendment for two reasons. One, as we think about aligned incentives here with the team and making sure that all of these benchmarks are actually met, there are certain circumstances that could undermine that progress that are outside of the city or the team's control, like a global pandemic, like a contractor not being true to their word. And so when we say we want to have the strongest public-private partnership in our city's history, it's a partnership. It is not a finger-wagging experience. It is coming together and determining how we can meet these shared goals, which is what this deal does. The second piece that I wanted to add that we haven't talked much about is, while this is a huge corporation, they're also in the hospitality business. The sports experience underlies all of the goals that we're trying to accomplish here. And so when we think about, are they going to be incentivized to fill the storefronts with small businesses and restaurants, or make sure that the housing goes up, or make sure that the transportation needs are met? It's not just because it's in the deal, it's also because they are required to stay in business to have an excellent sports fan and user experience. And so I just don't want that to get lost in the conversation about these aligned incentives, which is another reason why, in addition to the terms of the agreement that have already been hashed out around all this, gives me additional confidence that we're going to get the greatest transformation of this land that we can imagine, and I'm really excited about it. And so I think we should move forward with the deal as is that has already been negotiated for many, many months.
Further on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember Fruman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I later will be putting forward an amendment on accountability, but I won't be supporting this one. And one reason for it is I fully understand the idea of immediacy of penalties, but a $10 million penalty, and thinking about the development timeline, in year one, it calls for like 415,000 square feet. And if they delivered 200,000 square feet, should there be a $10 million penalty for falling that far behind that early? I think whatever measures of accountability we have need to be closely calibrated to what's realistic for them and to keep them on track and from falling very far behind. But $10 million in year one may not, it doesn't seem proportional to me to what a breach would look like in that year. So I won't be supporting this as much as I would like to see increased accountability.
Thank you. If there's nothing more on this, the vote will be on Councilmember White's amendment number 1. All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Excuse me, I misspoke. The amendment, I misspoke. The amendment fails. All right, I'm feeling a little embarrassed here. As I recall, I heard one aye and a chorus of noes. The amendment fails. Councilmember White, amendment number 2.
Thank you, Chairman. Colleagues, this amendment is about protecting the district from the worst-case scenario. The commanders have promised timely development. They've told us it's in their best interest to build, not stall. If that's true, then they should have no concerns with this language. But if it's not true, if the land is still undeveloped 20 years after the stadium opens, 20 years after the stadium opens, that would be a disaster for the city. Decades lost, opportunities wasted, and the community once again left waiting. This amendment simply says, if by 2050 the land is still not substantially developed, the district takes it back. This is not radical, it's responsible. Cities across the country have made the mistake of tying up public land with a single developer who drags their feet, and yes, DC has seen this before. When that happens, the people lose and the government has no leverage. We cannot afford to make that mistake here. We are in a budget deficit, and we're committing billions of dollars in subsidies and giving up prime public land. The least we can do is make sure the land won't sit fallow for another 2 generations. This amendment ensures accountability and protects our residents from being locked into a failed deal. I urge you to support it. I move Amendment 2.
We have the amendment before us. Is there discussion? Councilmember Lewis George.
Hi, Chairman. Thank you. I will be voting in favor of this amendment and strongly encourage my colleagues to do the same. I think it's reasonable. I mean, in regular DC terms, if they don't develop the land, run us our land back. That's all this says. I think if by 2050, the team has not made on good on its promise to substantially complete the mixed-use development, which I don't think is going to happen, but 20 years after the stadium opens, then I think it only makes sense for the district to reclaim control of the undeveloped land so we could do something with it. I think this one is a clear and reasonable safeguard. I don't think anybody will have an issue running into this because I think they will develop the land. So I think it offers the opportunity to ensure that the city retains leverage and can act in the public interest if promises go unfulfilled. I think it's really, honestly, a minimum we should expect when we are committing so much taxpayer money to this deal. So I think this is one where our colleagues should consider voting in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further on the amendment? The vote will be,
Can I ask a question? Because, I mean, one of the things that's come up on this is if the team has invested a fair amount of money to develop all the infrastructure, so, and like thinking about the riverfront district, where they may have to build kind of pedestal parking, and then maybe they haven't built the buildings on top of it, and we're in 2050, and the city and they've done 3/4 of it, but 1/4 of it's not done, and the city takes 1/4 because it hasn't been developed. Is there any need to compensate the commanders for the investment they made that made it ready for development? And how do we deal with that? And how would that be different than eminent domain in that moment?
Was that a question or a statement?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, if we're there and we're saying we're clawing it back, there could be a situation in which they would say we're entitled to compensation for investments that we've made. How do you see that issue? How do you think we would deal with a claim of compensation at that point?
Councilmember?
Thank you. The amendment language says undeveloped land. Again, we're not talking about 2030, we're talking about 2050, okay? Things have gone way off the rails if this isn't developed by 2050. Future council can negotiate with the team, but only if we have the leverage that we would put in the law now. So future council could walk it back, they could negotiate, and again, the language is only about undeveloped land. But if we remain silent on this, the city is stuck. We will not be able to get the land back. It will sit vacant. Again, this isn't what any of us expect or want to happen, but we have to protect the interests of the city in case things go off the rails.
So I was going to kind of refrain from debate on this, but I'm going to point out a couple of things. One is I don't know what substantially complete means, 90%, 80%, 70%, more than 50%. I get that 2050 is a long time from now, but that's not a defined term. And then
The language says
land
95 complete,
is
95%
undeveloped.
in the
So in
language.
response to your response to Councilmember Fruman's question, the campus is going to have a lot of infrastructure work done on it, not just by the city, but by the commanders or their partner. So I think it's arguable that there'll be no land that will be undeveloped other than an issue of whether it's substantial or not. So your answer, or the answer to Councilmember Fruman was, well, this is only undeveloped land, but I'm not sure there's any undeveloped land. Two concepts, substantially developed, what does that mean? Second, undeveloped, there's probably no undevelopment land to take clawback if that's what the standard is. We know that this amendment is problematic, and I would urge that members not support this. Anything further on this amendment?
Yes, Chairman. So the language in my amendment says, for the purposes of this subsection, substantially complete means 95% of the square footage required. But more importantly, if we do end up in a situation where in 2050, a substantial portion is not developed, what do you suggest we do?
I think this is a amendment in the search of a problem. That's what I think. Because I think there's every incentive for the team to get this land besides the stadium developed. There is economic advantage to them for doing that and doing that as quickly as possible. So as I said, I think this is a solution in search of a problem. I mentioned before that I think that, I said, not just I think, this is problematic. What the team has said is that this is a proposal that actually will make it more difficult for them to attract investors. I can't speak to how difficult, but it is a concern. So on the one hand, we're making this a bit more difficult. On the other hand, we're solving a problem that I don't think exists or will exist. I mean, I think the only way that we will see that the land isn't developed is if there's something that is major, like the country goes into a huge depression and there's no development, or, I don't know, there's an earthquake,
And then who gets left holding the bag? We do.
No, the city is not putting money into this.
And how long did it take us to develop Skyland? We had a commitment.
I don't think that's comparable. Skyland was an issue of economic interest. We could not attract a developer to the Skyland site. That's why we subsidized Skyland to the tune of about $100 million. We're not doing that here. We are subsidizing the stadium, but we are not subsidizing the private development. And in fact, there is a developer who's ready and willing and interested, and that is the Commanders. That's very different than Skyland. If there's nothing further on this amendment, the vote will be.
Chairman.
Councilmember Nadeau?
Yeah, I appreciate this amendment being advanced by Councilmember White because I have seen projects in my own ward that have not been developed or advanced the way promised, and there really was no meaningful way to do anything about it. I'm not going to rebut each of the things you said, but I do find it challenging to agree with you that this isn't a subsidy of public land or that Skyland isn't at all comparable. And of course, that was a pretty big burn for the community. So I don't understand why anybody should be worried about a clawback 20 years from now if they intend to develop this in all due speed. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to do, and we need to continue to create guardrails when we make investments of $1 billion. So I will be voting to support it.
Chairman?
Councilmember McDuffie.
I would urge members not to support it. It might sound harmless, but I think we also have to be mindful that there are other documents beyond our vote on this bill that will be negotiated and that should account for a scenario where in 2050 the land is left undeveloped. There's yet to be negotiated, but will be negotiated is the development and finance agreement. The lease has to be executed. There are documents that are not a part of the bill that we're debating that will hold the developers accountable for the development of the land beyond even some of the penalties that we put in there already. I mean, if they leave the land vacant, then it's going to be taxed as vacant, maybe even taxed as blighted. So there are other tools that will account for the scenario. And so I don't want people who are unfamiliar with development to think that this is the only tool we have to accomplish what has been suggested should happen if the developer does not complete the development by a date certain. There are things that will be accounted for in documents that will be executed subsequent to today. So I would urge members not to support this.
Further on the amendment, Councilmember Fruman.
All right, apologies for second round. I am, as a practical matter, I really do have in mind the riverfront district, which in order to develop it, given that its location in the floodplain, a lot of infrastructure is going to have to be built. And so then what happens if half of that hasn't been developed and it gets clawed back? What kind of, I promise you there would be a debate about compensation at that point. And I think it would look like an eminent domain case where the city will always have the power to take land if it's not being used and has a reason why it thinks it needs to be used. And so it does feel like one, I'm very worried about lags in development come 2050, as I will speak to later. But I'm worried about the mechanics of this one and think that in the process of negotiating these other documents, perhaps there's a way to anticipate how compensation would be dealt with, because compensation is just going to have to be a part of it if there's some sort of a clawback. So I support the concept, but I won't be supporting the amendment.
The vote will be on the amendment.
As for a roll call on this, Chairman.
Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Chairman Mendelson.
No.
Chairman Mendelson votes no. Councilmember Nadeau.
Yes.
Councilmember Nadeau votes yes. Councilmember Parker.
No. Oh, no.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker votes no. Councilmember Pinto.
No.
Councilmember Pinto votes no. Councilmember Robert White.
Yes.
Councilmember Robert White votes yes. Councilmember Trayon White.
Yes.
Councilmember Trayon White votes yes. Councilmember Allen.
No.
Councilmember Allen votes no. Councilmember Bonds.
No.
Councilmember Bonds votes no. Councilmember Felder.
No.
Councilmember Felder votes no. Councilmember Fruman.
No.
Councilmember Fruman votes no. Councilmember Henderson.
No.
Councilmember Henderson votes no. Councilmember Lewis George.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis George votes yes. Councilmember McDuffie.
No.
Councilmember McDuffie votes no. Mr. Chairman, there are 4 yeses and 9 nos. Sorry.
We'll see if I can get this right. The amendment fails. Councilmember Robert White?
Thank you, Chairman. Amendment 4 is simple. It has a 4.25% parking tax, or it strikes a 4.25% parking tax exemption on parking at the RFK campus. With the revenue it would generate, over $25 million over 30 years, dedicated to the RFK Anti-displacement Fund. Why parking? Because the overwhelming majority of fans who will drive to the stadium are not district residents. They're coming from Maryland and Virginia. That means this amendment ensures that people who use our roads, create the traffic, and benefit from this project are also helping to offset the harm it causes, specifically the displacement pressures it places on nearby neighborhoods. This is not an undue burden. For a $180 parking fee, which aligns with the current Northwest Stadium price, this amounts to an extra $8. And yet across 3 decades, that small charge becomes a meaningful tool to preserve affordability for thousands of DC residents. If we're serious about protecting communities from displacement, then we need a funding stream to back it up. This amendment provides exactly that, without asking more of the very residents who are at risk of losing their home. It is fair, it is modest, and it directly connects to the impact of this stadium to the protection of nearby neighborhoods. I urge my colleagues to support it. I have to go back to Amendment 3, Chairman, I apologize.
But you're moving number 4 right now.
Yes.
And again, this would impose a 4.25% tax.
It would strike a 4.25% tax exemption.
Discussion on the amendment? We'll have a vote on the amendment.
As for roll call, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Secretary's request for a roll call.
Councilmember Nadeau.
Yes.
Councilmember Nadeau votes yes. Councilmember Parker.
No.
Councilmember Parker votes no. Councilmember Pinto.
No.
Councilmember Pinto votes no. Councilmember Robert White.
Yes.
Councilmember Robert White votes yes. Councilmember Trayon White.
No.
Councilmember Trayon White votes no. Councilmember Allen.
Yes.
Councilmember Allen votes yes. Councilmember Bonds.
No.
Councilmember Bonds votes no. Councilmember Felder.
No.
Councilmember Felder votes no. Councilmember Fruman.
No.
Councilmember Fruman votes no. Councilmember Henderson.
No.
Councilmember Henderson votes no. Councilmember Lewis George.
No.
Councilmember Lewis George votes no. Councilmember McDuffie.
No.
Councilmember McDuffie votes no. Chairman Mendelson.
No.
Chairman Mendelson votes no. Mr. Chairman, there are 3 yeses and 10 nos.
The amendment fails. Councilmember Robert White?
Moving to Amendment 3. Look, we've heard over and over again that displacement is a problem. People say it all the time. It's a DC problem, not a commander's problem. That's what the team told me. But history tells us the opposite. Across the country, when stadiums go up in urban neighborhoods, longtime residents get pushed out. The data are clear. Areas around stadiums were once less affluent, more diverse, and deeply rooted. After the stadium comes, they become whiter, wealthier, and less accessible to the very communities that gave life to them. That's not speculation. It's what happens again and again. And unless we act, it will happen here. This amendment creates an RFK anti-displacement fund to protect affordability in the neighborhoods surrounding this project. The fund will focus on preserving existing affordable housing because preservation is more cost-effective than new construction, and because our city has already lost half of its naturally affordable homes since the year 2000. If we do nothing, more of these units will be lost to disrepair or converted to luxury housing, and residents who've lived there for generations will be forced out. If we're calling this a historic investment, then let's make sure it invests in people, not just in concrete. Let's use this moment to stabilize communities, prevent displacement, and protect the affordability of thousands of units. This amendment doesn't just safeguard housing, it safeguards the history and culture of neighborhoods that built this city long before a stadium was in the picture. I urge my colleagues to support it, and I move Amendment 3 at this time.
Thank you, Councilmember. Discussion on the amendment?
Councilmember White, could you speak to, you mentioned communities adjacent to the stadium. Could you mention how did you determine the geographic proximity?
We took an approximate guess of the economic reach and the impact that it would have on rents. Is there a specific concern? Do you think it's too big or too small?
I just want to make sure it's accurate, it's appropriate. I think one of the things that we did in my amendment was we used census tracts so we could be targeted, making sure we have the most impact to residents who need it. It just would have been helpful to know how did you go about with identifying the geography. But thank you.
I appreciate it. Would you like to add your census tract as an amendment to this? Would that make you more comfortable?
No.
Okay.
Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Councilmember White, for this. As we mentioned before, I think this has merit, and we should be doing everything we can to prevent the displacement of residents. Where, I'm trying to get clear, where would the funding for the fund come from?
There are two options. One is the parking tax that we are exempting the team from, that this council just voted down. The other would be what would be my next amendment, which will be an increase to the community benefits agreement that is much smaller in proportion than other stadiums.
Okay, so.
But this amendment, to be clear though, this amendment would create the fund. It would not,
Fund
this
it.
amendment doesn't fund it. Other amendments
This
fund
is
it.
just about creating it.
This would create it.
Okay, thank you.
Further on the amendment? The vote will be on the amendment. It's Councilmember Robert Wright's amendment number 3.
Roll call vote, please, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question before we take our?
Yes.
We have lots of funds that are now floating here, and I'm wondering if we can get clarity on what is the difference between the Community Reinvestment Fund that we dispense with in the earlier amendments and an anti-displacement fund that Councilmember Robert White is proposing now. Because it seems as though both are in similar goals, but we're siphoning off just for funds as opposed to perhaps in the future when we get to the process around the fund that is already created under Councilmember Felder's amendment, that perhaps the anti-displacement goals that you were trying to reach, Councilmember White, can be achieved in that fund as opposed to creating a new fund.
I'm happy to speak to that. Councilmember Felder's amendment allows us to use the existing community benefits agreement for some specific purposes, so splitting the pie more ways. What I'm trying to do is expand the pie so that we are not competing anti-displacement against all the other things we're trying to do with the community benefits agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If there's nothing further, I think Councilmember White, you asked for a roll call?
Yes.
Seems to be everybody wants roll calls today. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll? The vote is on Councilmember White's amendment number 3.
Councilmember Parker?
Yes.
Councilmember Parker votes yes. Councilmember Pinto?
No.
Councilmember Pinto votes no. Councilmember Robert White?
Yes.
Councilmember Robert White votes yes. Councilmember Trayon White?
Yes.
Councilmember Trayon White votes yes. Councilmember Allen?
No.
Councilmember Allen votes no. Councilmember Bonds?
No.
Councilmember Bonds votes no. Councilmember Felder? Councilmember Felder votes no. Councilmember Fruman?
No.
Councilmember Fruman votes no. Councilmember Henderson?
No.
Councilmember Henderson votes no. Councilmember Lewis George?
No.
Councilmember Lewis George votes no. Councilmember McDuffie?
No.
Councilmember McDuffie votes no. Chairman Mendelson?
No.
Chairman Mendelson votes no. And Councilmember Nadeau?
Yes.
Councilmember Nadeau votes yes. Mr. Chairman, there are 4 yeses and 9 nos.
The amendment fails. Councilmember White, I believe you have 2 more.
Yes, Chairman. Amendment 5 increases the community benefits agreement to $100 million. Right now, the district is putting more than $1.2 billion in direct subsidy to bring the Commanders to DC. This is one of the largest public contributions to a stadium in the country. And yet the CBA we're receiving in return is shockingly low compared to other recent stadium deals. If we're investing this much public money, then we must demand a meaningful investment back into the communities that will bear the impact of this project. A $100 million CBA is still not proportional, but it is a major improvement. It ensures that neighborhoods around the RFK site see real benefits, jobs, services, and resources that last beyond game day. Without this increase, we're giving a $1 billion franchise a historic subsidy and asking almost nothing for our residents in return. That is not a good deal. This amendment makes sure that the people of the District of Columbia share in the benefits, not just the costs, and I urge my colleagues to support it. I move amendment number 5.
We have the amendment before us. Is there discussion? I want to note that this was an issue that was negotiated with the team. The $50 million that we have is more than what the team had initially offered, substantially more than what they'd initially offered. But what I remember from the discussions was that the $50 million, which is what we have in the agreement right now, is more than has been extracted from any of the other teams in the city. Baseball, soccer, monumental sports. It's significantly more than any of the other teams, and I think that's an important point of comparison. What I recall as well, because I remember putting this forward to the team, is that when you ask for how much has been provided in other stadiums elsewhere, not in the city, you get different numbers and higher numbers, but actually that's misleading because that's sort of mixing philanthropy from the ownership group with the community benefits agreement, which is what actually is at issue here. So the comparisons are not what they seem to be. And as I said, the comparison with the city is that this is the most generous. It was subject to negotiation. It is part of the entire economic package of the deal. So I would urge members not to support this. If there's no further discussion.
Chairman, I will only note, community benefits agreement in LA, $500 million. New York, New Jersey, $500 million. This is not a big community benefits agreement, period.
The vote will be on Councilmember White's amendment number 5. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
The amendment fails on a voice vote. You have one more amendment, Councilmember?
Yes, Chairman. Actually, Chairman, this was related to the displacement fund that the council did not approve, so I'm not going to move this amendment.
All right, thank you. That brings us to, we have an amendment from Councilmember Fruman.
Thank you, Chairman Mendelson. As the discussion of the various amendments so far has shown, I'm reluctant to make major changes to this agreement between first and second vote. I think, but one of the things that we talked about before first vote was accountability for delivery of the mixed-use development. And I think we were all, many of us were very clear that this was a thing that we wanted to see strengthened. I'm not comfortable with some of the things that have been proposed, but I tried to tailor something that increases accountability and I believe is fair to the team. So what happened between first and second vote? One of the things is we found out that we're not exempt from zoning, and so it's going to take 1 to 3 years longer to get the mixed-use development. Not anybody's fault, happens. There was a change to the way in which the penalty for missing a benchmark would be applied. It had been fair market rent would apply 1 year earlier. Instead, it moved to fair market rent in proportion to the missed development would happen 1 year earlier. So if there were 400,000 square feet that were required in a benchmark and the team delivered 200,000, they would only have if fair market rent was 10 million, a $5 million penalty way out in the future. I actually think that's reasonable, but it lowered accountability. And then in the process that you've worked on, we increased the number of years that rent could be advanced from 5 to 10. That does increase accountability. And here the numbers are not exact, and Councilmember White talked about 2050, I'll talk about 2052. We would expect this development to be done around 2040. But what happens if they're in the late 2030s, well behind? And I think having some penalty then could make sense. And then what happens in the 2040s if they're well behind and there's no longer any penalty of advanced rent, there's no penalty at all? I think we should be having penalties. So what I've structured, and I'm going to need a little more time, Mr. Chairman, is in the late 2030s, if they are more than 30% behind, they would pay a $1 million penalty into the community benefits package. Starting in 2040, or around 2040, if they're more than 10% behind, they would pay $1 million. If they're more than 20% behind, they would pay $2 million. If they're more than 30%, $3 million. Mr. Chairman, another minute?
Without objection.
If they're more than 40% behind, $4 million. If they're more than 50% behind, $5 million. Calibrated to the degree to which they are behind and capped at $30 million. When we get to around 2040, one of the things that the team says is we have a shared interest. We want to get this done as quickly as possible, but we can get to a place where they feel like we're not capturing the rents we want, and so we want to slow development until we can fill these other buildings, and then we can get higher rents for the buildings that are over the horizon. Well, we want them to be building in that environment because we get 30% affordable housing, and we want rents to come down. We had a long discussion about we need to build more housing so the cost of housing comes down. So what I've tried to do here is calibrate something so that when we get into those out years, the team has an incentive to push forward. The penalties, I believe, are modest. The benefit goes to the community benefits agreement. I think this is fair, and I think this helps us increase accountability in a way that's fair, and I hope my colleagues can support it.
Thank you, Councilmember. The amendment is before us. Is there discussion on the amendment? The vote will be on the amendment.
Can we have a roll call?
You know, I want to say something snarky, but I shouldn't. Everyone's entitled to request a roll call. It's just we've had an awful lot of roll call votes today. Yeah, we like to hear the Secretary's voice. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Pinto.
No.
Councilmember Pinto votes no. Councilmember Robert White.
Yes.
Councilmember Robert White votes yes. Councilmember Trayon White.
Yes.
Councilmember Trayon White votes yes. Councilmember Allen.
No.
Councilmember Allen votes no. Councilmember Bonds.
No.
Councilmember Bonds votes no. Councilmember Felder.
No.
Councilmember Felder votes no. Councilmember Fruman?
Yes.
Councilmember Fruman votes yes. Councilmember Henderson?
No.
Councilmember Henderson votes no. Councilmember Lewis George?
No.
Councilmember Lewis George votes no. Councilmember McDuffie?
No.
Councilmember McDuffie votes no. Chairman Mendelson?
No.
Chairman Mendelson votes no. Councilmember Nadeau? Councilmember Nadeau votes yes. And Councilmember Parker?
No.
Councilmember Parker votes no. Mr. Chairman, there are 4 yeses and 9 noes.
The amendment fails. As far as I know, that completes all the amendments that we have.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilmember Allen.
you asked me to remind you.
I did, thank
You have
you.
a letter you need to read.
Yeah, so I should have done this at the beginning. We did receive a letter that I would like the secretary to include with the record, meaning that it will be posted on LIMS. This was a letter from the commanders this morning. It spoke to a couple of other issues that members had talked about. I'm only going to read part of the letter. With regard to heritage tree protection, we intend to protect as many of the heritage trees as possible, including all of the trees in the Festival Plaza, which is the land, I call it the median on East Capitol Street in front of the Armory, and commit to planting new trees on this land as part of the significant improvements being made to the site with new housing, retail and commercial development, streets, and open spaces. Additionally, we recognize the sensitive location of the RFK campus within the Anacostia River watershed and are committed to partnering with the district to deliver the 30% of open space on the campus, as well as working collaboratively with all parties regarding the 30-acre Anacostia Commons riparian area within the site. In addition to the significant environmental commitments the commanders have already made, the team's goal is to operate at zero waste, including striving to divert all solid waste from landfill or incineration, similar to other stadiums such as Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. I'm not reading the opening and closing paragraphs, but that is the substance, and I'd like this included in the record on LIMS. Thank you for reminding me, Councilmember Allen. Is there anything further with regard to the amendment in nature of a substitute? The vote will be on the amendment in nature of a substitute, and then, assuming that passes, on the bill as amended. On the amendment in nature of a substitute, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, please record me as voting no.
Mr. Chairman, please record me as voting no.
Madam Secretary, Councilmembers White and Nadeau will be recorded as voting no. The amendment in nature of a substitute is approved. On the bill as amended, if there's no further discussion,
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment because it had been my intention that if I could not strengthen the accountability measures, that I would vote against the deal overall. But I actually was struck by things that Councilmember Pinto said today. It's gonna happen. I think let's all get shoulder to shoulder and make this as great as it can be and try to use whatever tools we have to increase accountability. So while I didn't get what I hoped for, I'm going to vote in support of this bill.
all right, if there's no further discussion, we have the bill as amended. Councilmember Allen?
We're on the underlying, right?
We're on the bill.
About to have the final vote, right?
Yes.
All right, yeah. I'm going to open the floodgates.
Go for it.
Absolutely. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Until midnight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I have long been clear that an NFL stadium alone is not a good investment for the city. It just didn't. Decades of experience and research have shown us that. But building 6,000 new homes, creating thousands of good-paying jobs for DC residents, protecting our Anacostia River and Cayman Island, expanding the number of youth sports fields, facilities, those are very good investments. And in expanding the central role transit's going to play and strengthening the environmental goals of the site, now we can talk about a bigger vision for the growth of our city and what this can mean for the next 50 years for the District of Columbia, not just on Sundays. I fought hard to make this deal better. I'm not going to shy away from that. I've gone to bat to reduce parking lots and increase public transit. If we're building a stadium, then I want it to lead the country as the most sustainable and smartest building you can find, especially situated on the shores of the Anacostia River. To make sure we're building new homes, I needed to see stronger accountability to deliver for our city. And if we're building the equivalent of a small city, I fought to ensure it's going to have things the community needs, like a new firehouse to serve and respond. I'm proud to have worked with my Ward 7 colleague to make sure that there's a robust community benefits agreement for the neighborhoods already around the site. Delivering on that fight was important to me, and that is why I'm voting yes today. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for your inclusion of many of my potential amendments into your ANS today, items that I believe are crucial to securing a deal as large and significant as this. Given district residents are about to provide the commanders with more than $1 billion in taxpayer subsidy and provide them acres of waterfront land, we had to get this deal right. Ensuring the stadium is going to be built and operated toward the highest LEED Platinum standards, it's going to include the newest and strongest building standards to date. Ensuring spending for the newly created Transportation Improvement Fund. It's focused on investments like our Metro Rail, Metro Bus, and our public transportation. Locking in that shared evaluation with DDOT and the commanders of whether additional parking garages are needed. Protecting most of our oldest and largest trees on site with the team's new commitment, as you just read, preserving those heritage trees in the area along East Capitol Street and the Grand Plaza that's going to open up to this new stadium. Securing a commitment from the team to work towards zero waste in stadium operations. And very importantly, again, requiring proactive planning and funding for a new fire station to be built within this coming neighborhood. Fans of the team can rightly celebrate the return of the Commanders to the district as a major moment in our city's proud history. But football fan or not, every resident should be eager to see these 180 acres become DC's next big neighborhood and be a point of pride for what can be accomplished. Instead of overbuilding parking spots for 8 home games, we're going to have the most transit-friendly NFL stadium in the country. This stadium is going to set the new standard for how the U.S. can build big, ambitious projects while meeting the moment on climate change, and it's poised to take advantage of DC's strong renewable energy marketplace. The deal creates good-paying union jobs and a strong community benefits agreement to ensure DC residents are ready to fill those jobs. It has stronger accountability measures, double what we had just a few weeks ago, to ensure the team delivers on the housing with the same energy and focus that I know it's going to bring to the stadium. And this is a deal that delivers $800 million more back to residents over the next 30 years than that original deal that came to us. I want to thank the many, many, many residents who reached out to us and shared their views over the past 9 months. I want to thank the Washington Commanders for all of their hard work and the team with a lot of conversation and going back and forth. I want to thank the deputy mayor and the team from the mayor's office, the constant conversations and the work here, working on these details that I believe help the council finalize a deal that I think DC residents can be proud of. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember McDuffie.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to begin by thanking all the fans who have, you all have been steadfast in your advocacy that we bring the Washington Commanders back home to Washington, D.C., where they belong. And all your emails, all your social media posts, all your text messages did not go unnoticed. And it is because of you that we are here today. I also want to thank the chairman, who I've worked closely with, to get this deal where it needs to be, my colleagues, the Office of the General Counsel, the council's budget office, the secretary's office. There's a lot of work on the council's team that went into this, including the staff of the various council members. There's not anybody on this dais who I haven't talked to one time or another, or maybe 10 times over the course of the last several weeks to get to where we are today. We have improved this deal, I think, dramatically since it was first introduced. We've talked about a lot of it already today, and so I won't go to every single detail. But I do think it's important to note that we've continued to work to strengthen the responsibility of the team to work with our certified business enterprises and our small business enterprises in the District of Columbia. I know that is a huge deal for a lot of our businesses across the District of Columbia who are looking to participate on this. There are going to be thousands of jobs. We made sure that organized labor is going to be well represented in the jobs that come out of this deal. The ANS also is going to make sure that there's participation of the council in the process of drafting the community benefits agreement. I know that's been a big deal for a number of members, so that the community has a real voice in that process and the implementation. The AMS also requires quarterly reports to the council around, first source, apprenticeships, SBE and CBE participation and compliance. And I think all these improvements will really help to guarantee the implementation of this deal remains consistent with the wants and needs of the District of Columbia's residents, who we always should center and prioritize in the work that we do. This deal was not done in a vacuum, and I think it's important for everybody to know that. We heard a lot of the feedback that has come in over the course of the several months. I also want to thank the commanders, the team, the ownership for all their back and forth, the work, the negotiation. It was not easy, but I think we ended up at a place where we can all really be proud. And I can't wait to cut the ribbon in 2030 and see them play back here in Washington, D.C. But I'm hoping that we'll get to a Super Bowl well before then. So thank you all. I appreciate it. And let's bring the commanders back home.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be very brief.
That's what the last person said.
Yes, sir. Well, I just want to profusely thank my council colleagues, members from our government, the commanders, as well as the so many neighbors across the District of Columbia, but specifically in Ward 7, who have voiced their optimism, their concerns, to make sure that we get this right. It is no secret that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And since I've been a council member, I've said this repeatedly. Ward 7 is the only ward in the District of Columbia that does not have an anchor. Today, I'm proud to say that today's vote will change that. And I look forward to continuing to work with stakeholders, my council colleagues, that as the implementation starts, we make sure that community members' quality of life is not disrupted. So I just want to thank everyone.
Motion to close
thank you.
debate.
Thank you.
Second.
If you're serious, we could do that, but the motion to close debate allows everyone who hasn't spoken to speak. And I'm guessing at this point that anybody who
It was a
speaks-
signal.
I do want to just say, because if there's some thank yous, I want to thank on my staff, Christian Washington especially, because he put in all the hours. Not to say that the others on my staff didn't, and I want to thank them as well. General Counsel, there were a couple of people who got to spend their weekend again this weekend on that, so I want to thank that office. My colleague, Councilmember McDuffie, because we were partners in crime throughout this. The Budget Office, and if I just single out one person, I would overlook that there were several who worked on different aspects of this, including the economic impact analysis. And I also want to thank the team because they were very responsive and worked with us. There are occasions when we have to work with folks and they're not very helpful or cooperative, and that was not even close to the experience that I had with the team, so I want to thank them for that. I'll leave it at that. If there's no further discussion, the vote will be on the bill as amended.
Mr. Chairman. I just want to add one thank you, because I haven't heard it yet, to the mayor and her team who have really been instrumental in this process and securing the land transfer from Congress. And this has been a very long process, so I want to recognize all of the hard work of Mayor Bowser and her team as well along the way. Thank you.
I'm being reminded there were a couple of folks on Councilmember McDuffie's staff, Donnie Crawford and Marissa Rose, who put in a lot of time as well. All right, the vote is on the bill as amended. All those in favor?
Mr.
say
Chairman.
Aye.
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 I would request a roll call vote.
For real?
Yes.
Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
All right. Councilmember Robert White.
No.
Councilmember Robert White votes no. Councilmember Trayon White.
Yes.
Councilmember Trayon White votes yes. I'm going very slowly for dramatic impact. Councilmember Allen. Yes. Councilmember Allen votes yes. Councilmember Bonds.
Yes, indeedy.
Councilmember Bonds votes yes. Councilmember Felder.
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Felder votes yes. Councilmember Fruman.
Yes.
Councilmember Fruman votes yes. Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson votes yes. Councilmember Lewis George.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis George votes yes. Councilmember McDuffie.
Yes.
Councilmember McDuffie votes yes. Chairman Mendelson.
Yes.
Chairman Mendelson votes yes. Councilmember Nadeau.
No.
Councilmember Nadeau votes no. Councilmember Parker.
Yes.
Councilmember Parker votes yes. And Councilmember Pinto.
Yes.
Councilmember Pinto votes yes. Mr. Chairman, there are 11 yeses and 2 nos.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Secretary. The bill is approved, final reading. The next measure on the agenda is Volunteer Services Clarification Temporary Amendment Act of 2025. Councilmember Pinto.
Earlier this summer, the council passed emergency legislation which granted the mayor and the chief of police to institute juvenile curfew zones, extend standard curfew hours to 11 p.m., and to include 17-year-olds in these zones. I'm sorry, if I can ask everybody, try to be quiet a little bit as you head out, because we've got some more business to tend to. Thank you. This legislation was passed in response to large groups of young people engaging in harmful and oftentimes criminal activity in multiple areas of the city, a few of which we are seeing on a repeat basis, like in the Wharf, Navy Yard, and U Street. That legislation granted the mayor authority to extend the juvenile curfew hours throughout the district or in specific areas of the district when appropriate to protect public safety or public or private property. A mayor's order extending the curfew hours could not take effect until at least 24 hours after the mayor's order is issued, except in emergency circumstances. This legislation turned out to be very effective. It was a tool that was used in 7 locations on each weekend that it was in place for. MPD has experienced 0 curfew violations during the extended curfew hours from 8 to 11 p.m. within those curfew zones. And that's exactly what we wanted to happen. We wanted it to be a tool to say, hey, this is not a place where large groups of young people can be after hours, but we just want that to mean they dissipate and go elsewhere or go in smaller groups, and that's exactly what has happened. Given its success, I propose that we extend the authority to establish these curfew zones. With that, I move the amendment.
So you've moved the temporary and you've also moved the amendment. And the amendment is the juvenile curfew bill.
Say that last part again?
And you've moved the temporary and you've moved the amendment, which is the juvenile curfew bill.
Yes, it is an amendment to the Volunteer Services Clarification Temporary Act of
Correct.
2025.
All right, we have the amendment before us. Councilmember Parker, and then Lewis George, and then Henderson.
I have a clarifying question and I have a statement, but first for the clarifying question, I know we discussed earlier, Councilmember Pinto, this maneuver will result in a gap. Can you just clarify the extent to which that gap will exist?
Sure. So procedurally, we have to move the temporary before we can move another emergency. And so we will be voting on the emergency bill at our next legislative meeting, which is October 7th. The current emergency will expire on October 5th. And so usually it takes a day or two to get the emergencies up to the mayor to get signed. My hope and expectation is that there won't be a gap over the course of a weekend. So long as we pass it today, the temp today, and the emergency October 7th, and have the mayor sign it immediately, hopefully there won't be any experience gap, but there'll be technically a few days of gap.
Understood. And then for my statement, I know there's a lot of feelings around this. I have received a lot of impassioned testimony, concerns from residents around creating a pipeline to lock up our young people. What we know to be true is not one single district youth has been arrested due to these curfew zones. What they serve as is a necessary tool for MPD to disrupt large groups of young people congregating in areas of the city. And so that's one point I think we ought to stress. As the chairperson of the Committee on Youth Affairs that has oversight of DRS, I can also confirm, and we have checked in on this repeatedly, there's not been one young person that has spent an extended period of time at DRS, YSC in particular. The policy, how it works, is that MPD asks young people to leave. If they don't leave, they then take them to their parents. If they can't contact a parent, they then go to a holding place, often YSC, until a parent can be reached. Even in those instances, there have been very few examples where a young person has ended up in a holding pattern, not detained, locked away at YSC, but just held there until they are in touch with their parent. Why am I bringing all this up? People have very valid concerns, especially in the environment that we're in. I think it is really important, especially given the threats facing the district, the rhetoric and the threats coming from Congress, that we use every example and tool available to us to disrupt dangerous behavior and putting our young people in harm's way. So I do plan to support this. I welcome continued conversations with community advocates who have very valid concerns. I am just stressing that those concerns, albeit valid, are not playing out in reality. And this is, in fact, a tool to disrupt what we're seeing play out with our young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lewis George.
Thank you, and I appreciate Councilmember Parker's remarks. I am of the concern in my community is extra concern. We have been taking the brunt of federal interactions in Ward 4, particularly, not to discount anybody else, but even just this morning, a school, E.L. Haynes students coming to and from school was faced with federal enforcement around them with literally guns, and there are pictures everywhere. Because of that, for me, I'm not going to vote for this because I am very concerned that expanding and extending this provision will be used as a pretext to stop and detain or lock up more of our young Black and brown residents and put them on a path that could likely destroy their futures. I think we could argue whether it's happening on the ground in reality or not. I think it's for us, I have a community grappled in fear. And students walking to or from school, particularly where their parents may not be able to walk with them because of their vulnerabilities. So for me, that is the reason why I believe that this is a particular moment in time where I don't want to give federal law enforcement any pretext to cause harm to any of our Black and brown youth or their families any more than the harm that has already been caused continuously and constantly, even as of today, even for my community, as every hour has been an instance. So I appreciate your remarks here. I think we all have to find a balance. I only can speak to the fear that my community is grappling with in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can certainly appreciate this summer, or I guess at the start of the summer when we implemented this, there were a number of issues and things like that were going on. One of my concerns about us quickly extending this curfew is because, as Councilmember Pinto noted, while there have been no arrests in these juvenile zones that have been established, part of that is because there have been community organizations who work with young people who have deployed teams to these areas each and every time we have set up these zones to try to tell young people, it's time to get on the metro, it's time to go. And so while there has not actually been a young person who's been detained in the zone, there has been an evidence of a case where an adult who was trying to protect young people was detained and arrested in the zone. And these community organizations are telling us that they don't have the resources at this moment to continue to deploy the same type of curfew teams that they have been doing well into the fall. And frankly, I think we do one emergency, and then we do it again, then we'll come back in the spring and do it again. This is kind of happening in sort of perpetuity. I understand for the communities where they have been asking for some particular help here, but I just want to underscore that it hasn't just been because a young person read the press release and said, oh, there's a juvenile zone happening this weekend, let me not go down to the wharf, or let me not go down to Navy Yard, but there have been actual community organizations who have been dispensing information to young people to let them know and redirecting them when some of them don't know and find themselves in those areas. And so I'm not going to be able to support this today for that very reason, because I feel like if I got all these organizations telling me they don't have the resources and we continue to do this, now with additional federal agents and troops and all of these different things, I feel like we are creating a conflict here where we don't have the infrastructure to ensure that the young people remain safe and not in harm's way. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson. You just spoke? See, we're having too much fun down here. Councilmember Bonds.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I wanted to ask Councilmember Pinto, the time frame for this curfew, is it now 11 p.m. every night, or what is the time frame? I think it's 11.
Yes. But what about weekdays? Right. Okay, so it makes it 11 p.m. on weekend days. It was 12 p.m. on weekend days.
Okay.
And it's 11 p.m. on weekdays. So now it's just consistent, 11
Yes.
p.m. That's the only real change that's kind of in perpetuity. The other piece is just the authorization to declare a zone. And I would, I'm moved by hearing my colleagues talk about the different reactions in the community member group. I would love to hear more about that story, because that was the first time I had heard that, and that sounds awful. I also think in this context, especially with the additional federal interference in our city, I'm so sorry, Councilmember Bonds. You're so right. This is your time. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very kindly, Councilwoman. I thought that the time frame was 11 p.m. every night of the week now, and I guess as a former very active parent, I can see this is a safety measure for our young people. 11 p.m. every day, we're saying, don't be in these zones. We're saying be close to home. I won't say what my dad